record
There we go.
there. All right, thank you. My name is Pat Gualtieri, and I am the president of the Peripheral Neuropathy Support Network. I've seen a number of you in other meetings. I see Diana's coming on, and welcome to all of you, both our old friends and new. I am here tonight in Steve's place. Steve is the usual moderator for the Bethesda Chevy Chase group, but his son is in a celebratory event. He is launching his book at the Library of Congress. So quite an important night for Steve and his family. So he asked me if I would moderate, and I said, of course. And it's easy because it's an open discussion format. We have no speaker. So we're going to just do a couple of housekeeping, asking you to please mute yourselves until you're ready to speak. And we will have you either use your physical raised hand or the reactions section of your taskbar where it tells you you can click on raise and lower hand. And Glenn has offered to help me monitor the chat in case I don't see someone's hand. So that explains how we're going to operate. The Peripheral Neuropathy Support Network, just so you know, is an umbrella organization that we've developed to provide assistance to local support groups such as this to ensure that more people are aware, first of all, of peripheral neuropathy and following the motto of sharing is caring, asking each other to share their experiences, their strategies with coping, their treatment, their questions, concerns, and even things like snake oil commercials and such that you might want to ask others about. And so anyway, that's the Peripheral Neuropathy Support Network. We're currently working with the DC Virginia group, which Steve initially ran until he then moved in Maryland and decided to start the Bethesda Chevy Chase group. We're also working with the Pittsburgh group and the Essex, North and West Essex, New Jersey group, and somewhat with the Tampa group. And of course, with Glenn and the Western Neuropathy Association. I'm going to let Glenn say what he would like about that in a second. And also, of course, the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy. And we are actually meeting, the support group leaders are meeting very soon to see if we can do more to expand even further the support groups like this one that are operating out there. I run the DC Virginia group, and every month people come and write to me or say to me, is there a local group in my area? How can I find a group like yours? And I'm sure that's true of Glenn as well. So if any of you have the inspiration and the time and would like to actually work on getting a group going, we're always willing to help you with that, identifying how you would do it. There are actually a how-to booklet on how to start a group. And if you have any interest, of course, you can write to me and I'll put my address in the chat as well. Glenn, while I do that, would you like to say something about the Western Neuropathy?
Sure. Thank you, Pat. Just really quickly, yes, Western Neuropathy Association was basically founded to create and help support groups flourish. With COVID, we've moved basically online, but we do have 3 online support groups that happen each month. They're normally the 2nd Saturday, the 3rd Wednesday, and the 4th Saturday of each month. So the next one coming up is going to be on the 27th. We also have a lot of educational materials, a website, and I threw into the chat the actual website address, which is simply pnhelp.org. Also, among the other things we do are webinars. I'm going to be leading one this coming Thursday on unusual causes of neuropathy and how to get doctors to consider them. And the inspiration from that has come from a number of our support groups where people have gotten unusual diagnoses. So thanks for that. And, feel free if you want to be involved in any of these, please just go to the website. You can sign up and you can register for these events and for the support groups. And we usually have a pretty interesting and quite consistent time there.
Excellent, thank you. And I wanted to just say as a segue, for example, we had you had the presentation from Neighbor Force and Seniors Helping Seniors last month here at the Bethesda Chevy Chase group, and we repeated it for the Virginia DC group. So if you found something like that useful, let us know, or if you have ideas for speakers that you would like to hear or topics you would like to see covered, please, I just put in leader@dcpnsupport.org. You can email me. I think you also have Glenn's. Because of Zoom, we're fortunate. We're not geographically limited anymore. So the sharing goes nationwide. So we're really both an advantage and a disadvantage. We've lost sort of the comfort of physical support, but we've also been able to reach more people because of Zoom. So we're happy for that. All of that being said, I would like to ask anyone who is new tonight to introduce themselves if they're comfortable. We're not pressuring anyone to speak, but if you're comfortable and would like to share something about your PN journey, where you're located and how you heard about the group, and a little bit about some of your issues, concerns, and questions. Is there anyone who would like to leap forward and introduce themselves? Paul,
Paul.
you need to unmute, please. Remember to unmute.
So my name is Paul London. I heard about this group this afternoon at Sibley Hospital, at the Suburban Hospital,
Great.
where I'm going through an outpatient program for depression. And so I had a back operation about 4 years ago. And after that, I lost, my lower legs are less than mobile. I can walk with a cane, but I can't walk real far or real fast, and it depresses me. That's really my story.
Okay.
I work out. I actually own health clubs, and I work out with a physical therapist at one of my clubs, and work on building up muscle, core muscle and leg muscle, actually muscle throughout the body.
Right.
But that doesn't really help much with neuropathy because that is a nerve problem and not a muscle problem. So that's my situation. Any help? Well, I'd love to hear it.
Paul, I'm sorry, did I miss, how long have you had this?
About 2 years.
About 2 years. And do you attribute the problems you're having to the back surgery, or do you have are you considering it idiopathic? Are you diabetic?
No, it was right after the back surgery. It happened right after that.
Okay. You're making me a little nervous because I'm scheduled for back surgery on June 9th. And so my ears big. Oh dear. But of course, we always know that one thing we realize about PN, it is so individualized. Everyone's reason for it, the cause of it, whatever, it is pertinent to them, and even the treatments and strategies that work for one person may or may not for another.
What does PN stand for?
I'm sorry.
Peripheral neuropathy.
Oh,
PN,
peripheral
I'm
neuropathy.
sorry,
Okay,
peripheral
there you
neuropathy.
go.
I just automatically say that, sorry. And so we always start these meetings also with the disclaimer that we are not doctors and we are not offering medical advice. What we are doing is sharing experiences, what perhaps has worked or not worked, or Glenn is an amazing repository of information. And if you have a unique situation, I guarantee he probably knows about it. So please feel free to ask any questions that you might have. And Paul, when you heard about this meeting, did you have a reason that you particularly wanted to come, or did you have a sense that you wanted to ask something of the group, or are you just here today to listen and learn?
Yeah, just as soon as I heard about it, I was interested.
Good.
Because I'm very affected by it.
Of course.
So it's high on my list.
Affects our day-to-day living
Yeah.
question. All right. Does anyone have a response or a comment for Paul? Esther? And please remember to unmute. Good.
Yeah. No, I actually not a response, just introducing myself since it's my first time.
Welcome.
And thank you. And I was diagnosed with cancer about 2.5 years ago. And my neuropathy is due to the chemo that I received about 2 years, which ended about 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And it resulted, even though during the treatment, I was instructed to have ice on my hands and feet, but the hands are okay, but the feet were affected despite the ice.
Mhm.
And so my toes have been numb, and it's kind of a weird sensation. I have to say it's getting better all the time, but it's still there. And so I have seen that there is this group because I receive, I'm a patient at Sibley, and I get the information about all kinds of lectures and groups. I think they're very good about this.
They are very good at communicating.
Excellent, excellent.
Awesome.
So yeah, so I finally decided to show up and see maybe there is some magic. I'm not treating it in any way, and I thought maybe there is some magic cream or something that I can use. I can't say that it affects me too badly because I'm able to walk, and so far my balance is okay, but it's just it's a weird feeling, and it's especially when you lie in bed, and you have to lie in a certain way so that you don't get too numb. So that's why I thought I'd give it a try and see if anyone has some miracle drug or something.
I think we all are waiting for that miracle cure that's going to really change everything. And I think, unfortunately, right now, the most important thing that I've learned or heard about, and this was from Dr. Hoke at Hopkins, exercise, exercise, exercise. And so it really makes me feel good that Paul is working with his physical therapist. And it sounds like, Esther, are you doing any kind of movement or
Yeah,
balance?
so it's interesting that you're saying exercise, because I am wondering if some exercises are actually producing or increasing the numbness, and so and maybe there are some that don't. So I did not find the solution to that. I mainly walk and I do some yoga, but
I'm curious, when you were undergoing cancer treatment, did they suggest to you or warn you that the peripheral neuropathy could become a concern of yours, or were you left hanging and finding out yourself afterwards?
No, I knew that this would be a side effect, but you do anything to cure, to fight cancer. I mean, even the neuropathy was worth it.
Yes, I understand. Barbara has her hand up. Barbara, hello.
Yes, I've been here before, not recently. I too, Esther, I'm looking for that magic bullet. I haven't found it yet. I am undergoing cancer treatment right now.
Okay.
I can't say that there is a definite connection between my neuropathy and the cancer. I've had neuropathy for a number of years.
Okay.
But it's gotten worse. Is it related to the cancer treatment? Hard to say.
Mhm.
I find that when it bothers me the most is when I'm laying in bed.
Yes.
Being horizontal
Yes.
is a killer, which is, I find kind of strange. As I said, the neuropathy was quite under control. I did take medication and it was quite under control, but it has gotten worse recently. Truthfully, I never thought about a connection, a possible connection between the cancer and the neuropathy. Maybe because I'm dealing with so many other things that
Of course.
you can only think about so many things and get medication for so many things at one time. So, but I am here to listen and hopefully pick up some ideas.
I think neuropathy is a major unmet need for cancer therapies today.
It's a what?
It's a
I'm
major
sorry,
unmet
Howard, we couldn't
need.
hear that. Say it again, please.
Neuropathy is an unmet problem with cancer therapies today. The clinicians will tell you they don't. It's a common occurrence from chemotherapy and other therapies, and they're at a loss to know what to do about it. And in fact,
I have to say that no one has said that to me. But then again, no one has said a lot of things. You know, I've kind of had to find things out for myself. No one has really said that. I'm not taking standard chemo, I'm taking immunotherapy. I don't know if that makes a difference. I just know that it does bother me more at night. And when I said it bothers me more than at night, I saw a lot of heads shaking up and down. So evidently that is not unusual. I mean, and I've had it must have been 2 weeks ago, and I live alone. And I thought to myself, I'm glad right now, and most of the time I'm not glad to be living alone because that's hard. But this one particular night, I was very glad to be living at home, living alone, because the pain was so bad that I was screaming.
Oh my.
And I think I didn't take the medication early enough. I find if I take Lyrica.
Okay.
And that has always worked for me up until I don't know, month or 2, 3. And all of a sudden it's less effective. Why that is?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Why that is, I don't know. I spoke to my doctor recently, and I said, you know, how much can I take? And so she increased it a certain amount, and I found, strangely enough, that if I took the Lyrica, maybe an hour or 2 before going to bed, I found that it worked better than if I took it right before going to sleep, which I always had. I never thought of it one way or the other. I just popped it in my mouth the same way I took my other pills. But I do find that taking it early helps me to sleep, and it just helps me. So I don't know why. I don't know the answer to any of these things. But
I'm sorry to hear about the intensity of your pain. That's awful.
That way, it was only that one particular night. For some reason, did I do something? Did I not do something? I tried to think about it, didn't come up with any answers. It's gotten a lot better since then, since I increased the medication.
I'm curious, were you diagnosed with peripheral neuropathy? I mean, typically there is a diagnosis, unless of course it's idiopathic, before you had the cancer-induced Did
Oh,
you?
yes, yes, it's very much idiopathic. I've had the peripheral neuropathy for a number of years.
Okay.
So there doesn't seem to be any relationship, with the exception of the fact that it seems to have gotten worse.
Mhm.
Did you have the diagnosis of neuropathy before the cancer diagnosis? And if so, how far?
Yes,
That's
Pat
what I was
just
trying to
asked me
ask.
that. Yes, you wonder, did I have it before, and how, if so, how long before? I definitely had it before. How long, I couldn't really tell you. I know it was a long time.
Oh, okay. The
I
reason,
can't say, I can't put a number to it.
Yeah. The reason I do ask, and this is going to be part of the webinar I'm doing, is that there are neuropathies caused by immune modulating factors with certain types of tumors. The most
Yeah.
common one known has to do with small cell lung cancer, but most of the blood cancers often have neuropathy as a concurrent or even presenting symptom. And sometimes if people have neuropathy that comes on fairly acutely, not just over like the course of years, one of the things that might be looked for is an occult tumor.
Is an occult tumor, what is
Yeah,
that mean?
meaning one that isn't yet diagnosed or found.
Well, mine is, I don't have any of the cancers that you're talking about. I have breast cancer that has
Can still
metastasized.
be part of them. The anti-Yi, Rho, and Hu antibodies are often expressed in
Okay,
breast cancer tumors.
okay, good to know, I guess. I'm not
And
sure that it's good to know.
Yeah,
But,
without getting into too much of a chemistry lesson, people who want to know about this, please come to the webinar next Thursday.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have to say that at this point in my life, I want to know less about maybe what caused it, as to, I think I want to know more about how to deal with it.
Mhm. Are you getting any help from your medical team, your oncologist, or are they?
In terms of the neuropathy.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Other than the Lyrica.
No, I find, although I like my oncology team, I find that they walk one road,
Right.
and that is the road they walk. And if something else comes up, like something else has just come up recently with me, and their answer is, well, see your
Other person.
primary care.
Yeah.
So it's one road, and nobody wants to go over that road, over the edge, which in a lot of ways is disturbing. I understand why, but it is disturbing in some ways. But the answer to your question is no.
I think
Glenn, what time is your webinar? Glenn?
It's going to be 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 Central, 2 Mountain, and 1 Pacific on the 25th. I have to say that all the time now, because obviously we get people from all the time zones, and we even get them internationally. So
That's right.
Sure.
Absolutely. Bill had his hand up. And then
Yes,
we'll hear from Paul again. Bill?
yes. Barbara just said that it's worse at nighttime in most cases. And I hear a lot of people talking about that they can't sleep at night because it's the tingling and everything.
Right.
Mine is exactly the opposite.
Really?
Nighttime, it pretty much goes away. The rest, the best thing for it is rest. And when I get
See,
up,
now if
I
we
feel-
could combine, we'd be in good shape.
when I get up in the morning, I feel a lot better. My worst feelings are just before I go to bed at night, late in the evening, late in the afternoon. That's when it seems to get aggravated the most. But once, I never had a problem. I've had this for 7 years. I've never had a problem sleeping, and sleeping is the best cure for it. Rest is by far the best. And I totally agree with the exercise thing.
Well, what you're saying makes more sense than what I'm saying. Saying that it bothers me more at night, well, maybe it has its other reasons, but if you gave me a choice, I would take yours.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now I promise Paul to get back to you. Paul, do you have
I
a
come
comment?
at this from a point of total ignorance and naivete. I have a general question, which is, does neuropathy automatically get worse over time? Or
Not
could-
necessarily. A lot of it has to do with what the cause is, whether it's a cause that is treatable, because certain neuropathies are treatable, particularly the vitamin deficient ones and the autoimmune ones. There are treatments out there. I mean, nerves can regenerate. A neurologist who tells you that nerves don't regenerate basically needs to get their license re-examined. But the problem is that nerves regenerate incredibly slowly. And if you have a damage process that is outpacing that, then your neuropathy will tend to get worse. If you can get conditions such that you can pretty much even it out, then your neuropathy may plateau. And if you can stop what's causing the damage and give your nerves a chance to heal, you may get better functioning over time, although it'll probably be a long time and it'll probably not be complete restoration of functioning. I'm one of the living examples of people, because I had a very acute onset from what's considered to be an autoimmune molecular mimicry process of a neuropathy that had a very, very intense period, but slowly over time got better. Fortunately, they're able to track this with me through skin biopsies, which are the gold standard for determining a small fiber neuropathy. The people at Weill Cornell like to give me a skin biopsy every 2 to 3 years because I'm a real interesting patient and they can actually document this and get papers out of it. It helps to be an interesting patient at an academic research center because they figure they'll get papers out of it. But certainly for people who have chemotherapeutic neuropathies, when the chemotherapy is over, there's a reasonable chance it might improve somewhat over time. And of course, everyone is different. So it depends on how much damage your therapeutic regimen caused and what other conditions in your body will allow the nerves to heal. Even Paul, in your case, and I assume there was definitely an indication for you to undergo, spinal surgery. There are a lot of failed surgeries out there that cause nerve damage, but given good bodily conditions, nerves can be resilient and you might get some improvement if that's possible. But again, it's a very individual thing. And I'm assuming, you correct me if I'm wrong, your surgery was lumbar or lumbosacral,
Yeah. Yes.
and there was good MRI evidence for them to go in and do it.
Yes.
Okay. One of the problems, and again, Paul has a different situation than I think most of the people here, although Pat is about to go through something very similar with this.
However, my PN appeared
Yeah.
not related to the cancer. I've had it since 2015.
But you have like two things going on though. You have both spinal issues and a more systemic neuropathy.
Right.
And it's entirely possible for people to have that. My statement about that is none of us are excused from being comorbid. And in fact, people with diabetic neuropathy having increased symptoms as a result of spinal compression is actually a very common clinical picture. They call it the double crush phenomenon. Nerves are already disrupted from diabetes. People get disc, tears, and they get hypertrophy, arthritic spurring of the spine, and they wind up with symptoms all out of proportion to what you think the sum of the parts would be.
That's interesting. My sister has diabetic PN and has had 3 knees done because she had to have one repeated, and she's facing her second hip. And I feel very grateful that I'm not in her position. I don't have diabetic, I have idiopathic, but I have watched those surgeries over and over again, and it does make me wonder, but I'm grateful at this point that hopefully it looks like mine is a facet cyst. They're going to remove it and we should be fine, hopefully.
Hopefully it'll relieve the pressure, right? And then
Absolutely.
and then over
pain.
time, hopefully you'll get, some more of the function back.
Before the back issue, mine was simply tingling and numbness in the feet. I had no pain. I felt very
Mhm.
grateful that I didn't have pain. When I hear the stories that I hear every month from other people like you who are suffering terribly, I'm grateful for that. Do we have someone else who is new, perhaps, who would like to introduce themselves? Or if not, anyone who would like to bring up a question or issue or concern? Anyone?
We got quiet.
Yes.
Gail.
Gail has her hand up.
I'd just like to make a
Yes.
point
Oh.
that if the Republicans get their way in Congress and cut federal budgets, NIH is slated for a 22% cut, which will decrease the possibility of any research on peripheral neuropathy because it would be devastating to the biomedical research in this country. So just be aware of that those are some consequences people don't know about. But
Wow, we've only
22%.
just recently gotten approval to be in the fundable disease categories, and now we're to face this situation. Oh gosh, Howard. Thank you.
But it's still disappointing that if you go to clinicaltrials.gov and look for neuropathy trials, there's not a lot. And that's very disappointing that there's no, and hopefully the National Foundation can lobby more effectively to get more money put into the pot for neuropathy so they get more people. And as like Glenn has already said as well, neuropathy is a major problem with cancer chemotherapy. So it's not like it's a trivial issue that only affects a few people. It affects many people, as we all know.
All right, we're going to go back to Gail because I
Gail,
called on her.
Okay.
Gail.
I have been here a couple of times, but not recently. But I haven't had so much of a personal need because I had very little peripheral neuropathy. I had the tingling in the feet, and I was encouraged to try the stockings for a while, and I couldn't get them on. Like we talked about one time, I just couldn't get them. They were just
Compression socks, yes.
Yeah. So I didn't use that, but in August we got a hot tub, and we're in it every night. And I had back problems that led to the tingling and the numbness in the feet. It was never painful or never really bad. It just felt a little cold or a little too hot, But if I would try not to think of it as hot or cold, I try to think of it as sensation in my feet. And I did Calm.com meditations on pain, and that helped a lot. They have 7 sessions on pain from a pain expert on Calm.com, which is the most famous meditation one for adults. That although it does have children, but it's different from Aura, which has got a million teachers, and instead they just have a few gurus on Calm.com that you can work with over time. And I have been meditating for 3 years now, and this has helped everything in my whole life. But recently, I found that I started to get some sciatica. And I was wondering if that was related to peripheral neuropathy, and if it is peripheral neuropathy, they changed me around. They gave me Lyrica. It made it much worse. So they put me back on gabapentin and Lyrica, and now I'm on a course of that right now.
And have you seen any change for the better?
Yes, I have, but I had a crisis, what they called they said they were hoping it was just a bout of sciatica, and I went in and I got a shot of gabapentin and a shot of tramadol, and then they put me on a muscle relaxant and 5 days of prednisone. Right. And they're hoping that this will somehow say that it's about and not further dissemination of my back joint disease, which is causing a train wreck in my lower back anyway. And we're hoping that it's not that, although we will order an MRI when I get to my pain doctor. I'm on 1 pill of morphine a day. So
you're going through that right now?
I'm going to my pain doctor on Wednesday, and then they're gonna order the MRI and see maybe if that's causing the flare up.
Right.
But so far, the flare up has been quiet, and it's only been a couple of days, but I've been just, I don't want the stuff to wear off, and I don't want to be finished with my prednisone. I know that I don't want to be on steroids for a long period of time, so.
I
Okay.
went through the same exact course. I did the prednisone, I did 2 epidurals, 27 sessions of physical therapy, including both land and aquatic, and absolutely no relief. The prednisone, I was so hopeful, did nothing. So I'm not saying that to discourage you, please.
Yeah, yeah.
Very hopeful. One time I did it and it did help. This time around it really didn't help at all. Is there someone who would like to respond to Gail? Barbara?
Yeah, I wanted to comment on the compression socks. Those are, I'm being pushed to use those. And that's a very touchy type of thing. You want something that's compresses you, and yet you don't want something that's too tight. Because if it's too tight, obviously you can't wear them, and they create more problems than you began with. So it's very hard to find the right combination. I had been encouraged to get compression socks for diabetics. Now I am diabetic also, but the feeling was that the compression socks for diabetics were not that super tight. But I encourage you to keep looking for that right combination. It's not easy to find because everyone's legs are different. Right now, my legs are also swollen from, I think, medication that I'm on for the cancer. And although I tend to blame everything on my cancer medication, so I can't really say, but it's a very difficult, my point is it's very difficult to find the right sock, but don't give up hope.
So it's trial and error on your part?
Yeah, I found that it was trial and error, except I did concentrate on looking for ones that were labeled, as I said, for diabetes, and that seemed to help.
All right, that's good to
So
know.
I throw that out.
Gail?
I have a follow-up question, and just to say, the next thing that my pain doctor, obviously he works in medicine, and they have these injections that they go in and they radioplasty. Do you know that name? And does that work for nerve damage in the spine? And he says it burns out the arthritis, but that's not what he means, but that's what he says.
Yeah,
And
it's a radio ablation procedure, Gail.
Radio
ablation,
frequency
yes.
ablation, RFA.
Right.
Can you tell me if that hurts?
It probably will a little bit, but probably not anywhere near as much as the symptoms you're having. And they can give you a shot of something local, a lidocaine shot to help with that prior to.
Yes, they said they do use a nerve blocker or something, anesthesia.
Yeah, I mean, if they can find the right nerve tract that is generating the symptoms, it might be very effective. The trick is finding it.
Yeah.
And then the other trick after that is if they do ablate the nerve, as I said, nerves have the habit of growing back. It's the type of thing you might, if it works, it's the type of thing you might have to have done again in a year or two.
Yeah,
I think that's.
My friend had it done and he said it was miraculous. He has such pain relief, but it only lasted 6 months and he had to do it again. And he described it as a feeling of heat. And he said it was uncomfortable, but it was not unbearable. And he did have a local before. So he managed it and he thought it was well worth it. In fact, he's trying to get me to not do the surgery and try this, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a definite facet cyst and I want it taken care of. So whatever.
Well, I had a decompression laminectomy about 20 years ago with Dr. Powers, who's no longer with us. He was tremendous. He didn't do a lot of back surgery as a back surgeon. He just did this one for me and didn't do, that was the years when they were putting rods in backs and all that
Yeah.
terrible stuff. So you know that. But anyway, I do want to say that Voltaren really has helped me. The cream, people said, you want a magic cream? You can try the Voltaren. It's there's another name for it that you can get a prescription for, so your insurance covers it. But it's Voltaren over the counter now. And you put it on, I put it on arthritic shoulders, and I put it on my feet for the peripheral neuropathy, and it does work. Unfortunately, I get in the hot tub and I lose it. There's no use to do that.
All right.
So,
I don't understand.
Diane, welcome. Good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Yeah, it's nice to be here. I'm in the middle of eating supper, so that's why I've been having my face blacked out part of the time. I'll do that again, but I wanted to say something about Paul was talking about exercise, and then Pat, you mentioned too that
Dr.
neurologists tell us exercise, exercise, exercise.
Right.
And I went to a teaching university for a second opinion for mine neuropathy, which is idiopathic, so they can't, of course, find the cause. But he told me, yes, definitely do exercise. And he even said, you should do exercise, really exercise your calves of your legs too. And as well as stretching. And he also said, I can walk around, of course, and move and do my exercise. But he said, even if somebody can't get up and move around, if you can sit in your chair and get your body moving, march your feet, get your arms going at the same time, get your circulation going. He said, you don't have to, if your neuropathy's in your feet, you don't have to be up moving around on your feet to make it, to help you with your neuropathy or your exercise. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Virginia group has a recording from, it's probably a year and a half now, but we had 2 physical therapists come and they taught us basic, simple exercises that you could do while you were watching TV, keeping that circulation, keeping that movement and such. And you can find that by going to the website, which I put in the chat, dcpnsupport.org. And you can, people don't even realize you're doing it. You can be at a meeting and you could be doing some of the hand and or feet movements that they prescribed. And you can go to the website, go to calendar and past meetings, and you can just use the search box and write in exercise, and you'll be very surprised at the number of articles that we've posted about the value of exercise. So.
And you can also put on some snappy music with a good beat to kind of get you going so that you want to move with the beat of the music. And that, I think that's very helpful. And just some other things he told me, he really likes eating a clean diet, preferably something like a Mediterranean diet. He didn't say it had to be that, but he said, I really like the Mediterranean diet style of eating. He didn't say don't eat gluten, but he was kind of discouraging about gluten. And I know that's kind of questionable whether that affects some people or not, but he didn't seem to really care for gluten that much. He also said to take alpha lipoic acid R, which I take, of course, and I know a lot of people take that too, and L-carnitine. And in my case, my blood tests were coming out low in zinc too. So he told me to be sure to take some zinc.
I think that's a really important comment, her blood test. We need to have those, the blood work done to identify like the B6 and B12 issues and like zinc and magnesium. We need to be maybe more cautious than even our primary care doctors are, because we know these triggers, we know these issues that need to be looked at, and it's sort of on our responsibility to make sure that we are asking, if they are not recommending, that we're asking for these checks, especially if you're going to use supplements or not self-medicate, but add to either herbal or a supplement that you have heard about, that you check with your doctor, because there may be drug interactions, of course. which is another factor that we have to be aware of and cognizant of. So thank you, Diane. How about anyone else? Rebecca, Kiki, I don't know these people. If there's someone, Larry, who would like to speak?
Are there,
Paul's back.
are there known experts on this? Are there people who are the people to go to consult for either testing or for the kind of advice we're getting here?
I will defer to Glenn on that. Since I went to Hopkins, everyone had told me when I was first diagnosed, make sure you see Dr. Hope. Now there's Dr. McRae, there's a number of them, his colleagues, and they are doing both research and also if you go there for the workup and you have the full workup and you become part of the national registry, even if they don't find something specific to your situation or your needs, you are contributing to that registry and contributing data that is farmed and used across the board. It's an asset, a positive that you can do even if you don't get specific answers to your condition or question. So I went to Hopkins. Glenn, how about, I know you're going to say academic institutions, please go ahead.
Yeah, there are places that are major neuropathy and other neurological condition research centers. Hopkins is one. Obviously, you have the Mayo Clinic in my neck of the woods, because I'm a New Yorker. We've got the New York Presbyterian System, particularly Weill Cornell. Down going around the Gulf Coast, you have Jacksonville Shands, which is a place where they do a lot of research. Out on the West Coast, the University of California, San Francisco, up in New England, Massachusetts General, and in the center of the country, the Jack Miller Center, which is actually the reason why we have the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy. Jack Miller was the businessman who actually helped to finance it, and they're affiliated with Northwestern Medical Center and Northwestern University. The reason I mention this, of course, is that unfortunately, if you go to your average neurologist with complaints of neuropathy symptoms, a lot of them do not have a specialty in neuromuscular issues. They may deal more with multiple sclerosis or stroke or other types, headaches, other types of things. Usually, if you have something that's unusual and there's not a smoking gun type of situation, it's not directly related to chemotherapy, it's not obviously from diabetes, you're better off at a teaching hospital research center. People tend to be a lot less idiopathic in those places than they do in a lot of other medical practices, simply because the testing is much more extensive and they can work as a team and they can recommend you to rheumatologists or orthopedic surgeons if that's indicated, or gastroenterologists if they're looking for something with gluten like celiac. So it's better to have all that specialty around you.
That was the case with me too, being at a teaching university, because I was working with a neuromuscular neurologist, and he also referred me to a rheumatologist there. So while I was there, I was also able to see a rheumatologist and have some testing through him too, because they wanted to look at maybe there were some autoimmune issues, and they couldn't find any, but at least I went through the rheumatologist to have that looked at.
This has come up in the last 2 monthly meetings. I've begun to hear more and more neuromuscular neurologists, and but someone said that they are difficult to identify. Is that true, Glenn, or to find?
Yeah, they are difficult to find. It's not a specialty that a lot of neurologists come out of their internships, and actually go into. Generally, most of them are trained at the centers that I just mentioned. But fortunately, places like the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy and the Neuropathy Action Foundation usually have lists of these people by geographic area. So you can actually go and look at those websites and get some sort of an idea. There are certainly names in this area everybody should know. You mentioned one of them, Pat, which is Dr. Hoke. Certainly Dr. Hoke's previous colleagues like Dr. MacArthur up there, who created the skin biopsy protocol. Where I am up in New York, the big name is Norman Latov, who's written several books about neuropathy and who founded the Cornell Weill Center. You also have people like Ann Poncelet out in University of California, San Francisco, who probably wrote the most influential paper in the field, which is called an algorithm for the evaluation of neuropathy. It was written years ago, but it is still so influential that it is the official American Academy of Family Physicians position paper on neuropathy. And if you go in and put in an algorithm in neuropathy, you could probably get it to pop up pretty easily. But you're generally better off at those type of places, I think. Certainly in support groups that I'm involved with, we get people from less urbanized parts of the country, shall we say. We have a lot of people from Texas in one of our groups. And unless they're in Houston or Dallas or maybe San Antonio or Austin, it's like next to impossible to find somebody who has neuromuscular experience.
Okay, thank you for that. Paul, where are you located? Did I miss that?
I'm in Bethesda, Maryland.
Okay, so you are local. I know that some people are joining us from outside the area. I've just put in the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy's name, and it's just foundationforperipheralneuropathy.org. And there is a wealth of information as well there. And if you just use the search box, you'll be able to identify, like they have lists of support groups, but they also have lists of providers that you might want to consult, Paul, as far as experts Glenn referred to. Other comments or questions, perhaps from people we haven't heard from? Okay, there we go.
I'd like to go on record as saying that the more carbs you eat, high carbs, has a negative impact on peripheral neuropathy. I noticed that whenever I go and have a nice big load of carbs at my favorite diner in Silver Spring, boom, I'm dead for the rest of the day. It has a serious impact.
I know I've been told that if I could just give up the sugar, but I'm a baker and I love to cook and I love to bake. And it's my downfall. When I retired, I thought I was going to take French patisserie courses and at the Culinary Institute. And no, none of that has happened, sadly. But I moderate, but I can't give it up. And someone told me if you can get through the first 2 weeks, you will not have that sugar craving. I don't believe it, but maybe after my surgery, I might actually give it a try.
Yeah.
Has anyone tried
withdrawal is-
Epsom salts? Soaking in Epsom salts?
I don't know who's asking.
Howard.
Howard, soaking with Epsom salts. Has anyone used that? I know I've heard people say I can't go to sleep until I put my feet in hot water, and someone else says, no, it has to be ice water. So that's what I meant about the individualized nature of this. What works for one doesn't necessarily work for another. But Howard is asking about soaking in Epsom salts. Has anyone tried that?
Well, I haven't tried it, but I know people who have, and the thought behind the mechanism is that the magnesium in the Epsom salts helps to stabilize the nerve membranes. It's very much the same idea for people who actually supplement by taking magnesium.
And do you know, is there a recommended dose for magnesium? Because I would like to check mine. I have no idea how my magnesium is.
I know what the reference ranges are, although I'm not sure just how good those are, because the reference ranges are supposed to be normed on very large samples, and magnesium is just not a test that a lot of people get done unless there's a specific reason.
Right.
So I'm not even sure, like, what it would mean unless it was way outside range, like really, really low. I've never met anybody, by the way, who has a really, really high magnesium level, because excess tends to be excreted. But, certainly for the people who supplement with it, I do. A lot of it is to help stabilize the nerve membranes. And I do notice, because I have had this happen, that if I run out of my magnesium citrate and I don't take it for a few days, the cramping gets a lot worse.
Ah, okay.
That's, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. And like, oh, okay, I'm going along fine. And then if I stop taking that, I'm like, uh-oh.
And I'm glad you said citrate, because that again is a learning curve. You have to know what the form is of what it is that you're taking, and just picking it off the CVS shelf is not necessarily a good idea.
Yeah.
So-
Larry actually put in the chat a good dosage, about 250 to 500. The reason I mentioned the citrate, although there are other forms, there's malate and stuff, most of the stuff that's on the shelves that's cheap is magnesium oxide, which unfortunately tends not to be well absorbed gastrointestinally. It tends instead to be dumped into the large intestine, and it makes you run to the bathroom.
Mhm.
Now, for some of us, that may be a useful side effect, especially at a certain age. But yeah, you don't want to be like you're prepping for a colonoscopy all the time. So, so the idea is that things like citrate and malate do tend to be absorbed more slowly and have less of that kind of an effect.
So which one do you recommend?
I use citrate because it's fairly inexpensive. Malate tends to be a little more so. There tends to be a lot of malate in a product called Slow Mag because it is slower and it doesn't make you run to the bathroom as much. I'll put in a plug, by the way, you know, with Pat's permission. I like to get a lot of stuff. When I talk supplements, I often go to Swanson because they're a Canadian company originally, and the Canadians seem to have a better sense that they really should strive for purity in supplements. I'm not always so sure that American companies, where we have the caveat emptor idea, always do that.
I know my son-in-law is a radiation oncologist. He told me to take no supplements, period. He said, you don't know what you're taking, what the labels say it's in it or not.
Yeah.
And you don't know what the fillers, especially if you don't know where it's coming from and it's produced in certain countries. So that is a good Swanson, SWANSON.
Yeah, Swanson vitamins. I mean, that's. I went through a lot of trial and error because you're absolutely right, Pat, that a lot of the stuff, I certainly wouldn't go on Amazon and just order this because who knows where you're getting it from. But, you know, going directly to the websites and then, you know, looking at the certifications that the Canadians seem to be hyper about seems to have worked better.
Well, I'm really glad for that because I'm trying to figure out calcium and vitamin D at this point. And you look at them and you think,
Yep.
which one am I supposed to be taking and which one, whatever. So
I'll tell you one other thing about that
Please.
If you want to take both calcium and magnesium, which I do, take them at different times of day. Biochemically speaking, they tend to compete with each other in terms of just the chemistry of the ionic compounds that are formed. So like I'll do, like if I'm doing calcium, I'll do it with breakfast. I'll do magnesium with dinner.
Well, I even found out that if you're trying to up your calcium, that you should separate them by at least 4 hours, your doses. So if you're doing 1200, you do a 600 and then at least 4 hours. I was just taking both of them at the same time. I didn't know that it mattered. So as far as absorption and its effect, I'm starting to be more conscious of what I'm taking when. But as we age and we're taking more and more meds, it is very difficult to really plan what you should be taking when and to be on top of that so that you're getting the maximum benefit from what it is you're taking and not spending. I'm taking Eliquis because I had a pulmonary embolus and it's very expensive. And I said to the pulmonologist, do I really have to take Eliquis? And she said, do you want my honest opinion? And I said, absolutely. Your professional opinion. And she said, pay the money. So it just, you have to ask, you have to advocate for yourself. And you learn a lot by reading, but you also have to think of your source. I'm a librarian by training. I talk about credibility. I talk about accuracy. I talk about, these factors that you have to consider in what it is you're reading, thinking, and doing. It's so important.
I belong to Consumer Lab, and I'll go through Consumer Lab because I like that. They don't rate every supplement, but they do rate many of them in terms of if they're purity, if they dissolve, if they have any anyway, they rated on about 4 different things. And so I was trying to keep that in mind and check. something.
Diane, is that are you saying like the monthly subscription to the Consumer Lab reports on the supplements? Or are you talking about the annual article? What are
I'm
you?
talking about the monthly. I pay annually, so it's just a little bit cheaper that way. But yeah, you can get it monthly too if you want to just check some things out. And they send out an email every twice a week on things that they're checking out on.
Okay, would you mind writing that in the chat, please, so that people who
Sure.
aren't familiar with it, I know that's come up in other monthly meetings, and the whole question of supplements makes people nervous because they think they're doing the right thing, and then they learn out that they're having at a toxic level, and they've decided their dosage, and they shouldn't have. They should be talking to a doctor. That's what we keep talking about as well.
Mhm.
Do we have any other comments? Diane's going to write that in the chat.
Yes. In fact, I'll maybe even be able to get the price down too.
Okay. Barbara.
Okay, something that Pat just commented on,
Yeah.
talking to a doctor. Yes, I'm a big believer in consulting doctors, but I have found as I'm going through the cancer treatment that doctors, like anything else, vary. And what one will tell you, the other one won't. Or I won't say won't. They will look at things differently.
Contradict. Mhm.
And it's very hard to know what to believe and who's saying the right thing for the individual.
Yeah.
I just had I take 2 medications for the immunotherapy that I'm on.
Mhm.
And it was making me very, very tired. Now I know that fatigue is one of the side effects, but my fatigue was occurring 9 months after I started the medication. So, I mentioned it to the doctor, and one oncologist said, and the oncologist said, well, and this was just recently, she said, well, I think you should start taking vitamin B12.
Okay.
She gave me the dosage. She said, you can get it over the, just in the drugstore. And I happen to have had some because I was taking it up until the time when someone told me not to take it. Okay. So I've decided to start taking it again because B12 often gives you a little bit more energy.
Energy, yes.
Okay. And I was thinking about it, and then I realized that my regular doctor had tested my B12 not too long ago.
Your primary care physician.
My primary care.
Mhm.
And because I wanted to continue, I was on it, and I wanted to continue it in the hope of giving myself a little bit of a boost, because I believe that vitamin D, that B12 is excreted. So whatever you don't use is gone. And they said, no. Your vitamin B level, according to the blood work, is fine. Therefore, we don't want you to take the vitamin D, the B12.
12, right.
So here I am again with the B12. One has said, take it because that might give you the boost of energy that might help you. And I'm not even mentioning it to the other doctor at this point. So my point is, you get different answers to different questions from doctors. And I think sometimes at the end of the day, you have to make your own decisions.
And I think you're right. You've made the effort to ask the questions, to get the advice, to get the opinions. And I think part of it also is the rapport you have with the person. Do you trust them? Do they listen to you? Do they hear you? Are they responsive to your concerns? And I know that in the the healthcare system now, with so many time limits, and you can't even get an appointment. I swear you could be half dead and still be told it'll be 6 months before there's an opening. And
Yes, that is true. And I just had that again, my legs are swelling. And they say it's because of another medication that I'm taking. So before I made a decision about whether to stop it, start it, whatever, I wanted to speak to my primary care. And I called, and she just never called me back. Now, I'm not a doctor, so I don't really want to make that decision. But I was so frustrated that I was ready to bang my head against the wall. Maybe that would have helped if I banged my head. Maybe that's the cure for neuropathies, banging your head against the wall. And what I finally did is I called the doctor on call and said, okay, this is what my problem is. No problem. I will call Dr. So-and-so. She will get back to you tonight. Did that happen? No. But she called this morning.
okay.
And I started, she didn't want to hear it. But I said, I've been with you a long time. I like you. I think you're a good doctor. But if I can't reach you, if I have a question, we have no relationship. She didn't want to hear that.
Of course not.
And her answer was, do you have a portal? Or do you have a patient portal? I hate patient portals.
I know everyone has their own. They don't talk to each other.
I just don't like it, but I'm so frustrated. She said, I always look at my patient portal. So I went out this morning to the doctor's office and I had them help me set up a patient portal. So I have now a patient portal. Is that going to give me good communication with the doctor? Well, only time will tell. And I'm not optimistic.
I did not realize this, but they can, even though it says it, I didn't really think about it. They can bill you for the portal messages because that takes their time for them to.
Is that right? Oh, so they can bill my insurance company.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's becoming the way of the land. You better get used to portal.
Oh, that's very interesting.
So it tells you there's a disclaimer.
Okay. Well,
fair on the doctor's perspective. They are spending their time to you person to person, but they do have to do the research or answer, look up what it is that you're asking about and get back to you. So I think it's fair, but I don't know what percentage they're getting paid back, or, what coverage, what the insurance companies. My husband was a psychologist and I was horrified at how the levels that they pay and their answers and excuses for not covering this, that, or the other. So again, the word I would say is be your own advocate.
Yes, you have. Well, ultimately, I made an educated decision as to what I was going to take and not take. I was trying 2 medications. And since I couldn't get a hold of the doctor, I didn't know where it was. So I decided, although I didn't like the decision I was making, but I felt that was the way to go. And of course, when I spoke to her this morning, she said, no, I don't think that you should be doing that. Oh, and I thought to myself, well, had I been able to talk to you, I would have a better answer. I don't care about the billing for the insurance company. My primary is Medicare. You want to bill Medicare? Fine. You want to bill my secondary? Fine. But I want the attention to me as a patient. That to me is more important than anything else, because that's why I'm calling them. If I didn't need the help, I wouldn't be calling them. So for whatever that's worth.
All right, my friends, we're about coming to the end for this evening's discussion. Is there anyone
yeah.
else who hasn't had a chance to speak, who would like to say something, add something, respond to other people? Paul, did you feel that you learned something tonight and it was worth your time, I hope? He may have left. He is muted again. All right. Last chance for anyone. Okay. I
Yes,
will.
Paul.
I found it very useful. Thank you
Very
very much.
useful, Paul. Thank you. You found it useful. Good. I hope you will continue to join us each month. And I'm telling, I think, the correct information. Eleni will correct it if it isn't accurate, but the next meeting will be June 20th. It will also be an open discussion meeting. And you will also be meeting in July on July 20th. And you will not be having an August meeting, is what I understand. So they will confirm that at the June meeting. But if you're making summer plans and you want to know, it looks like this group at least will not be meeting in August. Now, the Virginia DC group is doing the opposite. We're meeting in June and we're meeting in August and skipping July. So that gives you a monthly meeting to go to in this general DC area in June, July, and August. You just have to look at the calendar and figure out which one meets your time needs. We meet on the first Saturday of the month at 2 o'clock. And of course, this is an evening meeting, which meets some people's needs better. So if you're confused, go to the website and look at the calendar, and it will tell you what's upcoming for both Virginia, DC, and also Maryland. All right. Oh, and saving the chat, in case you don't know how to do this, if you go to the chat and open it up, click on chat, and next to the smiley face emoticon, there are 3 dots, an ellipse. If you click on that and it says more, save chat, and click on that, that saves it to a folder on your computer. This is if you're on a laptop. I'm not certain about the phone because I never tried to do it, but let me finish this and maybe we'll ask about the phone. If you save the chat, then you find the Zoom folder on your computer and you can rename it and put today's date, and you can say Bethesda Chevy Chase PN support meeting, May, whatever today is, 17th.
18th.
And then you can go back, and if you wanted to re-look at what Glenn said or missed Diane's reference to consumerlab.com, you can find it. Also, though, this recording and or at least the chat will be posted on the website as well. And remember, even though it says DCPN, it's for the DC area. So it has both the Virginia, Maryland, and DC information on it. And Glenn gave his information about the Western Neuropathy Association also in the chat. They have amazing number of meetings that you can attend. You should probably be able to find a day and time that meets your needs across the 3 groups. Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate your coming and your participation, and we always learn from each other. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Carol.
Thank you very much. Thank you.